Hi, I'm David Baker of Origin Live. Welcome to this two-part video series where we're going to unbox and set up a turntable and a tone arm. In this first video, we're going to unbox one of our Calypso turntables and we're going to set it up to optimize its performance so that you can get the most engaging sound out of your vinyl. In part two, we'll be unboxing one of our tone arms and setting it up on the Calypso. We're doing separate videos because we sell them separately, but also both deserve equal attention. If you're looking for part two, then just check out the link in the description. So first off, let's get this box open and see what's inside. First thing you'll find inside are the instructions, which will have any details that you might want to know. And then the turntable platter, which is in its own layer. And if you take this out, you'll find the rest of the turntable underneath. So first off, you'll see the plinth and the motor pod. We've got our power supply, IEC cable, and the bag of bits, which has everything else you'll need for setup. And if you take out the motor pod first, this is actually helpful because if you put your hand into the recess where the motor pod was, you can just push the plinth up a little bit and it's a little bit easier to get out then. Make sure when you get the platter out, you put it with the spindle facing up so that you don't damage that. And then in the bag of bits, what you're going to find is your turntable belt. You're going to find the spindle for the turntable bearing. And you will find that there's a little oil film around that spindle, so just be careful when you're opening it up. And next you've got a cork ring and the strobe card for speed. We've got various Allen keys if you ever need to adjust the turntable, but it comes preset and you won't actually need them for setup. Then we have the screwdriver, which you'll need for setting the speed, and finally the oil for the bearing. So now we've got everything out, we're going to start with setting up the plinth. And for that, I'm going to clear a little bit of space. You're going to want to start out by leveling your plinth. And for this, we tend to level by the arm board, so you can do it right out the bat. The arm board is leveled with the platter itself, so you can also level the turntable by the platter. We just tend to level it first here. For this, I'm going to use a bubble gauge. You can also do this with a right angle. It's a little bit more fiddly because you have to set the right angle at 90 degrees and kind of keep rotating it to make sure that each position is level. With a bubble gauge, the bubble gauge is set to measure the level on this plane, so really it's a much easier tool to use. Ortofon do a really affordable one. They also do one which is slightly more expensive but is a lot more sensitive. And that's the one that we use here when we are making the turntables, and it's also the one that we use when we're setting up. So I'm just going to put the level on the arm board right here. As you can see, the bubble is quite out of center. So to compensate, I have 3 feet. I have 1 foot here, here, and also just under here. And what you're going to want to be doing is twisting those feet at the base. I can twist this one up and down. And as I'm moving that up, you can see that the bubble is getting towards the center, and that means that our turntable is becoming a little bit more level as we go. So you just keep adjusting these feet until that bubble is right in the center of the gauge. And it's always best to actually just check from above. Get a bird's eye view on the bubble, because it's almost always out if you're looking from further back. But now that is absolutely perfect, and hopefully that shows in the iPhone as well. We've leveled the plinth. Hi, I'm quickly interrupting this video just to ask that if you're finding it worthwhile, please could you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also press the bell notification. It really helps us to carry on making these videos. And yeah, what we want to do is carry on having open conversations about vinyl replay, and also giving you insights into how we've been making turntables and tone arms in-house in the UK since 1986. Well, not me personally, because I'm 31, and that's... Anyway, you get the idea. So, thanks, and back to the video. Our next job is going to be to drop some oil into the bearing house, insert the spindle, and then get the platter on. So, you start with your oil. You're going to want to take the cap off and put it to one side. Now, what you will want on hand for this is a little bit of kitchen roll. This is a Origin Live own brand, obviously, costs £1,000. But you're just going to want to drop in around 10 drops, or if you actually look inside of this tube, you can see a thrust pad that is kind of sticking up from the base of the bearing house. And basically, you want to just get the oil so that it's above that thrust pad, so you can see that it's kind of totally covered. And then when you put the spindle in, the remaining oil, the surplus oil, is going to fill up the gaps, because this is a suspended oil bearing. So we're going to get out the spindle. And we need to be a little bit touch and go here. What I'm going to do first off is drop the spindle in. If you look here, you'll be able to see that the oil rim is just slowly forming as the spindle is kind of dropping into the well. Now, there's rather a lot of oil coming out, and we're just going to want to soak that up with a tissue roll. And I'm going to push the spindle in, and as a bit more oil comes out, I'm just going to soak it up, push it in. We're looking for an oil lip, and that means that we have enough oil in there that the spindle is being suspended inside the bearing house. And it also means that we know that there's no lack of oil inside there that's going to kind of mess with the friction and the free rotation of the bearing. Now, if you've added some oil and you've got the spindle in and you've given it a little firm kind of compression, if you're not getting an oil lip, you're going to want to take the spindle out, add more oil, and then just repeat the process until you're getting this visible oil lip. But as I say, it's very important for it to be there, otherwise you are going to be compromising the kind of free rotation of the bearing. Next up, we're going to fit our platter, and this is the easiest bit. All you're looking for is the large hole here, and it might help to just kind of have a finger nearby. Get that finger to just touch the spindle so you know where it is, and then drop your platter on. And there we go. After that, we're going to set the initial motor position. Here's our motor. Generally, I'm looking to position between these two bolts here. The cable shouldn't be touching the plinth. If you kind of have a centimetre gap, something like that, that's acceptable. That's where we're going to start. Another way that you could orientate this is on the switch knob, there's a line. If that's pointing towards you, it's kind of roughly in the right orientation. And then we're going to want to plug in the switch mode power supply adapter for the motor pod. So just undo the cabling. And obviously I'm using a UK IEC here, but we will provide a US IEC or a EU IEC. We can even do some Australian fittings, some strange plugs. If you need something like that, just get in touch. And you'll see as we're powered on, we've got our blue LED power on light. So next up, we're going to want to attach our belt and set our belt tension. So to attach the belt, this can be one of the fiddly bits, but it's not too hard. What I'll do is I'll get the belt fully out. I'll put it over the Platter's rim. And then I'm just going to keep it taut in one finger. Bring that around to our motor pod. Now, this is a little bit too close to the motor for our belt tension. This isn't the most scientific, but we want our belt held in my finger, taut like this. I want it to be about 5 mil away from the motor spindle. So about there is perfect. And then once I've got that, I'm just going to pull it over the motor and then spin the platter a couple of times just to make sure that the belt is getting onto the crown of the motor spindle here. Now the other thing to look out for is the height of the belt. I've levelled the deck slightly high. Really, we want the belt to be 1 mil above the platter edge, because if it's touching the platter's rim, that's kind of introducing some more friction. The tolerances on the production of the platter's rim, not quite as good as that on the edge. So really we want the whole of the belt to be riding within the edge of the platter. So now we're going to set turntable speed, and there are a couple ways to do this. The most reliable is with a strobe card and a light. We have one that we provide. This only works with 50 Hz or 60 Hz lights, which is not necessarily readily available these days. I think when we started making these, it's probably about 20 years ago, and there was more kind of fluorescent style lamps available that would emit a light at 50 or 60 Hz. So you can get a 50 Hz or 60 Hz bulb, a lamp, pop this on here, turn everything on, and you'll find that the different rings are representing different speeds. When the lamp is shone on it, there will be kind of a solid line that's not moving when the ring is spinning, and that means you're at speed. Same would go for something like a KAB strobe, which is our preferred strobe to use. There are also more kind of high-end solutions such as the shake and spin, which we've used quite a few times. It's really good. It's a good solution. It just takes a little bit more time to use. Today, for simplicity, I'm actually just going to use my phone. The thing about setting with phone is that different phones can vary slightly by about 0.1 RPM, we found. You also want to make sure that the weight is distributed in the kind of right place, but for rough setting, I think it's actually a pretty reliable measure. So to do this, we're going to need a tape roll and a phone. My preferred app is Turntable Speed. Other people like to use RPM Speed, I think it's called. Anyway, because the spindle is protruding, we're going to need to raise our phone up above that so that we can set the speed. Just going to place the phone on top, turn the motor on, and as you can see, it's running. at around 32.6. Our turntables take a couple of seconds to get to speed, but they're generally pretty reliable. Now just using the screwdriver in the first hole, and we've hit, there we go. That is around 33. As for setting 45, it's the same again. You just switch up one more time and then set with the second potentiometer. So that was setting up the Calypso turntable, and now you're well on your way to experiencing it for yourself. Next up, we're just going to need to mount and set up the tone arm, and that will be available in part 2 to this video, which will be linked in the description below.